This is Tippy I. The time has come for the Lions to tell our own story. You're listening to the Lion's Voice vlog. Respect and love from St. Croix VI to the world. Ras Tafari.
Greetings, this is Warrior King, and the time has come for the lions and the lioness to tell their own story. This is the Lion's Voice. Give thanks and praise for the wonderful blessing that's been poured on me. Give thanks and praise. Jah use I as an instrument to set the people free. Jah give her the powers to chant. Jah give her the powers to chant. Ras Tafari, the Lion's Voice.
What are you waiting for? Come together, calling from near and far. Know who you are. What are you waiting for? Rally up, it takes the dust. What are you waiting for? Ancestors paved the way for us. Yes, I am Ketis Oyonde, asking, what are you waiting for to come together? The time has come for the lions to tell our own story. This is the Lion's Voice.
Let us keep in mind that the visit of His Majesty to Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension the Caribbean, was a direct result of the then Prime Minister, Dr. Eric Williams, who invited His Majesty. Prior to 1966, His Majesty sent one of his public servants to go to Ethiopia and commission Emperor Haile Selassie I to come to Trinidad by any means get him here. So he went and set up. An embassy was set up in Ethiopia.
The year is 1892, and the land of Ethiopia has been experiencing 4 years of terrible famine and drought. They call it the Kikuken, or the evil days. At least 1/3 of the human population and 90% of the cattle have died. The hyenas have feasted on so many carcasses that they have become overweight and barely able to move. Just when the people could take no more of the evil days, a woman named Wasiro Yeshimabe is giving birth in a place called Erjersa Gora. This is her 9th attempt to bring forth new life. Her previous 8 attempts only resulted in death. Will this child live? Thankfully, a healthy baby boy is born. His first cries are drowned by thunder and lightning flashes across the night sky. The heavens open up and torrential rain starts to fall. Ethiopia's drought is over, and the baby boy is given the name Tafari, meaning one to be feared or respected. Lich Tafari's father, Ras Mikael, is a very important man in 1892 Ethiopia. Although he is overjoyed at the birth of his newborn son, he cannot spend much time with him. Ras Mikael is the governor of Harar and must get back to the famous walled city to deal with its affairs. Furthermore, he is the foreign minister of Ethiopia, and having traveled to different places in Europe, he is very aware of the material and military advances they have made and the looming threats they pose to his country. Ras Mikael knows that the majority of Ethiopians have no idea what is coming, and that he has to work that much harder to secure the realm. Lich Tafari would grow up to become the legendary Emperor Haile Selassie I. To understand his journey, we must first understand the Ethiopia that he was inheriting and what it was like when he was born in 1892. Get your copy of Kwasi Bonsu's book, Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, and increase your knowledge about the history, politics, and culture of Ethiopia in 1892, and how it connects to the rest of African and world history at the time. Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1 is available for purchase at www.bookmanexpress.pub. Please visit for more information.
All right.
But proudly. Religious ties and friendly links between our countries were renewed and forged with the visit of Emperor Haile Selassie and his distinguished party. Trinidad and Tobago salutes Ethiopia. A rumor and our African visitors, greeted by the mayor and the waiting crowds, had their first impression of Trinidad's indigenous cultural expression when the pulsating beat of the steel bands talked of our common heritage of drums. To the Lion of Judah, our drums declared their welcome across the country, which waited eagerly to pay homage.
All right, we're just giving you a little viewpoint. Bongo Grease set the stage for us about the visit of His Majesty to Trinidad.
Yes, greetings again. The visit will be a rather interesting visit, since the visit was a 3 days period, from Monday the 18th of April 1966 to the 21st of April 1966. You know, HaileSelassieI, Ras Tafari, give thanks to each and everyone. His Majesty arrived in Trinidad and Tobago at 12 noon. At 12 noon. Between the hours of 12 noon to 12:20 p.m., 12:20 p.m., His Majesty, first place he visited out of the airport, as you can see in the show you just do there, that first place he visited was the Arima Bandstand, where he was welcomed with the drums of Trinidad and Tobago, pan band, you know, children beating for him, which he was really amazed hearing steel band music as on his arrival. After leaving the Arima Bandstand, His Majesty then visited the Ethiopian Orthodox Church in Aruka at 1:05. During the time that he visited the church in Aruka, it was a very historic moment, because it is known that out of Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church was the first to arrive in Trinidad and Tobago in the early 1952. I believe it's in January 1952. So out of the sister continent, Trinidad and Tobago had the first Ethiopian Orthodox Church. As I indicated earlier on, it was from 1952. However, at His Majesty visit to the Orthodox Church in Aruka, the head of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church at that time was Reverend Meshra Gebra Yesus Meshida. He was the person that lead the prayer and welcomed the Emperor Haile Selassie I to the Aruka Church. Also at the church was one of Trinidad and Tobago stalwart, Turaya Buzz Butler, who before Dr. Eric William fought for elections and parties in the early 1950s. He greeted His Majesty at the Ethiopian Orthodox Church with a palm branch, you know. And I guess some of the words was Ila, Ila, you know. One still trying to interpret the word, but I guess it's Hebrew, Amharic. Ila would be like, you know, in some terms, Allah would be God. In Amharic is a God, you know. Eli is a God. So it's all about the interpretation of the word. When he left the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, he spent about 20 minutes. He then traveled to the University of the West Indies, where he ended up touring the campus. Then coming down on his way down, he was able to visit the children rally. He was very concerned about the children rally, you know, the children rally, which His Majesty himself personally greeted the Scouts and Girls guys. It was a real amazing moment for the youths. However, let us keep in mind that the visit of His Majesty to Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension the Caribbean, was a direct result of the then Prime Minister, Dr. Eric Williams, who invited His Majesty. Prior to 1966, His Majesty sent one of his public servants to go to Ethiopia and commission Emperor Haile Selassie I to come to Trinidad by any means get him here. So he went and set up. An embassy was set up in Ethiopia. I guess prior to His Majesty coming here, there was a guy by the name of Mr. Daniel. I will find his name from Mr. Daniel, who put his credence to His Majesty. Give His Majesty his credence. So there was an embassy and there was an ambassador from Ethiopia to Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Daniel. However, again, the visit as a direct intervention, the Trinidad and Tobago contingent knew of the visit. Jamaica, Barbados, and Haiti were indicated or knew about the visit through diplomacy after the acceptance of the visit of His Majesty to come to Trinidad, to visit the other 3 Caribbean islands, since there was something in common. Prior to that, the real reason for bringing His Majesty to Trinidad was more or less, Dr. William, as a Harvard University student, was a very skillful man. During those early years of 1966, the elections, as you know, in 1966, Queen Elizabeth visited Trinidad. But in terms of His Majesty was the first Ethiopian to ever travel abroad. And his first travel was out to the United Nations, which set the precedence for further journeys, as we have experienced later in 1966 in the Caribbean. So getting His Majesty here was a highly strategic political move by the then Prime Minister, Dr. Eric William, since in 1966, Trinidad and Tobago was undergoing an election. And during that election, there was a very strong pull and tug between the East Indian community and the African community. So getting Her Majesty to Trinidad actually brought the African population more stronger together, where they could not be bought or sold. So it was a direct strategy. If you happen to do history and you study Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Eric William wrote some books, Capitalism and Slavery. You might also see one of his books, Inward Hunger, by Dr. Eustace Eric Williams. That would indicate, one of the main push for bringing His Majesty to the country at that particular point in time. His Majesty visit here at that point in time too was also part of the ongoing solidarity for the love that the people of Trinidad and Tobago show to His Majesty during that particular period of time from 1936. However, we must understand that during 1966, while Jamaica had a strong Ras Tafari presence, Trinidad and Tobago never had an established Ras Tafari, established Ras Tafari society. However, what we had here in Trinidad was a long tradition of Pan-Africanism. This is where Trinidad was a very strong, a dominant Pan-African, contingent in Trinidad. But if we go in to look at the first Pan-African conference under Sir Henry Sylvester Williams, and then again we look at we recognize, as I have it here, there were 5 Pan-African conferences. The last one was in Manchester, London. The leaders for the first time in Africa have been in a conference in charge. At that conference, you had 2 Trinidadian. Now you had one Trinidadian by the name of CLR James, who at the time in between 1936 was in London mobilizing and activating for funds in order to assist Ethiopia. Because while His Majesty was in exile, he was still the main man. He was still part of the struggle. He was still the main person. So funds and these things was collected. While on the other hand, there was a Trinidadian again by the name of George Padmore. George Padmore was an advisor to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He was also an advisor to Emperor Haile Selassie I. If we take into consideration the formation of the Organization of African Unity, it was formed in 1963. Both George Padmore and C.L.R. James were responsible for and had the mandate and the mission to establish or creating that space for the Organization of African Unity. Because after that, in terms of their work, there were two conferences, the Casablanca Conference, which was headed by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and the Monrovia Conference that was headed by Emperor Haile Selassie I. These two conferences set the pace for the Organization of African Unity, together with George Padmore and C.L.R. James. So our Pan-Africanism was very strong, dominant. We met a sister from Trinidad and Tobago by the name of Elma Francois. She was an activist on the war, on the war. So in Trinidad and Tobago, when we really look at it, we look at 1936, when the Italian invasion invaded Ethiopia with Mussolini. It was again George Padmore, a Trinidadian, who helped to bring about the consciousness of the people of Africa and bring about the concerns of Ethiopia. It was always commendable to remember that the Italian was driven out of Ethiopia. There was another Trinidadian who was involved in Ethiopia during the period of the time, right? His name is Colonel Julian, also known as the Black Eagle. He was replaced by an African American named Robinson as the head of the Ethiopian Air Force. So Trinidad and Tobago served, again, as I indicated earlier on, as part of that dominant, Pan-Africanism. Trinidad served as leading roles in terms of Pan-Africanism to set up and free, the African countries from colonialism and imperialism. So I would now go and just touch brief on some of the, I might be here and there, but I'll give you the history of Her Majesty's visit. On the 18th, Dr. William Haile Selassie and Governor General Sir Solomon Ochoy walked through the Guard of Honor, again, as I indicated with the Scouts and the Girls Guide. The Emperor was introduced into Trinidad and Tobago as a living legion, the Saga of Ethiopia, also the Lion of Judah, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering land of the tribe of Ethiopia. Mr. George Daniel, that's his man name, Ambassador of Ethiopia, present his letters of credence to the Emperor Haile Selassie I in August of 1965. At that year, where Trinidad had set up the embassy into Ethiopia. Now, this embassy that was set up into Ethiopia was very strategic, again, as I indicated earlier, by His Majesty, because it only lasted about 2 years after His Majesty visited Trinidad. It didn't have the real full power of the embassy there, because it had already served its main purpose. Born in 1892, a provincial noble stock, young Tafari, as he was first, had no expectation of a throne. Even before the First World War, at an incredibly young age of 16, he was provincial governor. He was already at the rallying point for Ethiopia. His Imperial Majesty encouraged, one thing he loved, he encouraged the youthful adherents to seek higher education at home and abroad, while he was still regent in 1823. He won Ethiopia membership of the Leagues of Nations, while that impotent body did him little good when the Italians invaded 13 years later. The move drew Africa Hidden Kingdom into world political mainstream for the first time. A precedence. Also in the 20s, Emperor Haile Selassie I became the first Ethiopian ruler to go abroad, the precedent for many other later journeys, including this present visit to the Caribbean. As emperor from 1930, his first act was to offer his country a new written constitution. His personal sponsorship of of major educational governmental reforms was interrupted by his exile in Britain in 1936 to 1941.
This is culture sound, a Rastaman sound, positive sound.
Culture sound system with DJ Culture Tafari TV.
And now you're in tune to the culture sound, Rasta sound.
Culture sound because of DJ Culture Tafari TV.
I help coming from the true living eyes, Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I, who created Zion and earth. He shall not suffer and I foot to be moved. I hold, he that keepeth Ethiopia shall neither slumber nor sleep. Well, youths in the streets right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. One bad police right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. No justice, no peace right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. The fire not cease right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. The youths them rise against brutality, man a kill another man for your salary. Them train them at the shooting gallery, black and loot, you might lose all your family. Them defend white supremacy, so them see the African as them enemy.
Yeah, I'm gonna say culture sound
like this for centuries, them sick mentally. That's why we have the out in the streets right now. Riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. One bad police right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. No justice, no peace right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. The fire not cease right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. Them said them tired of the looting, I and I tired of them shooting. Ku Klux Klan they recruiting, then them dress up in a blue suit and they're brutalizing our youths. Them no court, they just execute them till the people start learn the truth. And the black youth go strap on them Gideon boot and them out in the streets right now. Riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. One bad police right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. No justice, no peace right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down. The fire not cease right now, riots in your town now, Babylon them burning down.
Now this is the original
feeling their responsibility to lead the youth them to a brighter future. Well, I hear the conquering line of the tribe of Judah, Earth's rightful ruler. Not just to free Ras Tafari crowd, unconquerable. We come to tell them about Babylon, they're falling down.
Alright, in a culture sound, you me a million, but
we come to tell them about the free Ras Tafari crowd, unconquerable. We come to tell them about Babylon, they're falling down. Uncle yo, me come fi tell them out how heap a palace intrigue in fighting between Solomon seed. Well, Empress tied to want her family fi lead. Well, King Michael was representing King Michael. Now watch the orphan married to his niece, who get up every day and a study and a read.